Welcome, everybody, to our first official episode of Snowgoer Live, the live version. My name is John Prusak, editor and publisher of Snowgoer Magazine. I'm glad you joined us. We have some guests that are going to join us here in a little bit. We're going to talk about snowmobiling. We're going to talk about Arctic Cat. We're going to talk about a bunch of things. So thank you for joining us. This show will be weekly through most of the winter, Thursday nights at 7:30 Central Time when we can. Frankly, the only time we'll have it where it won't be then will be when I'm traveling, hopefully testing some new machines somewhere and riding instead of sitting in front of a computer. I hope you understand. But first, we'd like to thank our sponsors. Snowgoer Live is brought to you by Z1R, which has a full line of snowmobile helmets and motorcycle helmets for that matter. They can be seen at z1r.com or at your local power sports dealership. Our other sponsor is Arctiva, makers of a broad line of helmets, boots, gloves, layered wear. They have great socks, a whole bunch of stuff. They also can be found at arctiva.com or at any Parts Unlimited affiliated dealer. So with that, we're going to get the show rolling here. We'll start with kind of an update on Team Snowgoer, if you will. We got a little riding in earlier this week. We grabbed a 2025 Lynx Rave GLS and a Polaris 850 Indy VR1 that had the dynamic shock system on it. And we headed up to northern Minnesota. We were warned before we went up there that they weren't grooming yet, that there was still some rough patches and stuff like that. That said, we were not fully prepared for what we found. That was one of the roughest rides I've done in some time. Mainly because I think before we got there with the rain and snow and stuff, the snow surface got really mushy. But then when we got there, it froze, and so there were these deep grooves. There were big chunks of snow, and it was a workout. We got our money's worth that day, but either way, still better than sitting on the couch. Looks like our friends out east are going to get a bunch of snow. I know where our guests, both of them are in the UP where they live. It looks like there's some big snow headed there. So hopefully where you live, you'll be able to get out riding soon. So that's all we can hope for, I guess. Big news in recent weeks, as I said, on Arctic Cat. We'll cover that, plus some news from the snowcross world that just broke the last couple of days. The sport also said goodbye to a couple legends. And so we'll talk about all that in our hot topics section that will be coming a little bit later in the show. But as I said, we've got two guests that are kindly waiting in our waiting room. And they're both busy guys, so we want to get to them right away. So our first one is Steve Hamilton. Let me click at the right spot here and bring Steve up. I'm still learning the system, so I apologize about the clunkiness. Here comes Steve, Mr. Steve Hamilton. I'm going to make us equal. So Steve is Snowy Bunker up in Wakefield, Michigan. What's up, Steve? How you doing today?
Hey, good evening, Mr. Prusak. Not much. Enjoying some fresh snow outside.
Yeah, so the snow is falling now?
It is falling. We are a little underwhelmed so far with what we've seen, so we're hoping for a surprise in the morning. But there is several inches of fresh lake effect powder here, so that's a nice change.
And I know in some areas up in the UP, they're saying it could kind of snow through Sunday. Is that still kind of the forecast in your area as well?
Yeah, it's looking like pretty much snows right through the forecast, depending on where the lake effect band's set up and all that stuff. Everybody's amounts will vary, but looks like maybe the eastern UP might be getting it pretty good here in this next blast. So we're hopeful, though. We got riders out riding everywhere, and it's busy.
Yes. So Steve and I, we first met when we both had cameras on our necks and snowmobiles were zooming by us. Steve was a really good snowmobile photographer that would show up at a lot of the same races where I was hanging out when we still had Snow Week magazine. Since then, you moved to the UP. You became an official in a lot of different snowmobile clubs and authorities and associations. How did that all come about?
Yeah, I'm actually be celebrating my 10th year relocating to the UP here. My family's always been super involved with snowmobile clubs. When I was little, I told everybody I always looked forward to, endless Mountain Dew and popcorn at snowmobile club meetings and running around all these bars and restaurants, playing games and having fun while Dad was doing the work. And that really stuck with me. I'm a veteran, served in the military, and the duty to serve others has kind of always been in our family. And I got up to the UP and just kind of fell into a club that was in disrepair and needed a ton of youthful effort, and we gave it our all there at Goer Range Trail Authority. And I've since I started that business, I was a UTV waterfall tour guide, and we launched a new arm of that business up here by the Porcupine Mountains in Ontonagon County, where I'm now the secretary of the North Country Snowmobile Club and groomer operator and trail sign erector and whatever duty falls down the pipe on us.
Well, thank you for your service both to our country and to our wonderful sport, of course.
Absolutely.
So we talked earlier, it sounded like you had a crew that was going out and still even doing some signing yet today, getting ready for snow season.
Yeah, we we go through inspections and things, and there were a couple things that we still wanted to clean up. And wayfinding, our signs were kind of not utilized last year, so we had to straighten things up and make sure the wayfinding was as good as we could get it with the supplies we have right now. And it was a great day. Shout out to Mac and Ricky and Traverse City Troll Joe, my buddy. We all went out and pounded posts in and got supplies to make a bunch of concrete, posts for areas that we can't stick posts in the ground. So it was a great day. Saw plenty of riders out. Snow is minimal here, but it's still rideable.
So I was up in your general neck of the woods here. What was like December 14th, and that was this day. Where
Oh
we got
yeah.
to get out and do some riding and stuff. I had actually contacted Steve, everybody, when I was like, okay, I've heard there's snow in some places in the UP, but not always. And so you kind of told me the areas to avoid that were still wet and stuff. I know we had some rain since then, but still, are some of those areas filling in and freezing up pretty good now?
Yeah, the ORV trails in the summertime, our local club, My Trail here in the Western UP, shout out to those guys. They do an awesome job. Those really were some of the best surfaces that we had to set up the trails on. So, Trail 13 north out of Bergland and 3, all of those are still in good shape. They're a little icy south of Math City and south as you get to Bergland. You kind of fall out of the snow there right now. But
Okay.
the side trails like Trail 12 and some of these other ones that are in the woods, they have frozen up really, really well. We actually have some frost in the trail here and didn't lose it through the rain. So, when you pick the year off, that first 2 to 3 feet of snow almost gets consumed from the ground up.
Yeah.
And so as that freezes down, now we got the frost in. So now a little snow is going to go a long ways up here. So it's we're in really good shape, but we definitely need snow.
Yeah, that ride we had was absolutely fantastic. Even though it was early season riding conditions, but still we went from Lake Ogibic on up to Houghton and back, and some of the side trails. Now some of those side trails, I understand there's a couple bridges out and stuff that are causing a bit of havoc, but still the riding
Yeah.
up there is absolutely wonderful. Thanks in large part to the work that guys like you do.
Yeah, it's man, night of shout outs, but man, cheers to all the other groomer operators out there. It's been a battle this year. We always try to go into the year hoping that we don't have a ton of water moving and a big wet fall. And we had a really nice dry fall going, and then 3.5 weeks of rain, and then winter came. So it's always such a struggle, and it really is an art form. And it's easy to break equipment and abuse equipment. And seeing how strong our Western UP clubs have been running this year, when no other trail systems have really been open, is really a testament to the pride and the people up here that take care of these trails. We're just one little 100-mile club, and there's clubs all around us with more miles, and it's a really cool team, a real privilege to be a part of it all.
So in our chat, somebody who goes by Pack Out Adventures says, "I hear Steve's older brother is a legend." That wouldn't be your brother, would it?
Unfortunately, that would be. He's sitting out in Arizona talking smart, so that's
absolutely
too cool.
Well, if we can't get our families to tune in, what can we do, right?
Right. No, yeah. He's a guide as well. He does a bunch of hunt outfitting out there in the mountain states. So he's it's all in the family here.
Very nice. So I know from talking to you in years previously, land access is always an issue. And preserving the trails we have certainly is always a challenge due to whether it's trespassing issues, whether it's pieces of property changing hands and things like that. Is going into this season, any big changes in the trail network up there, or any big challenges that you're facing?
Right now, the kind of some of the biggest issues, we have a bridge out just south of right outside of Twin Lakes right now that's causing, kind of a short but long detour. And really kind of the overall message is just aging infrastructure here in the UP. I mean, there are all the trails, the rail trails that we're riding on were built 120 years ago at least. And a lot of these they're still timber, timber truss bridges and just really old stuff that's just rotting and falling away. So right now, the biggest marquee ones, there's Trail 13 from Twin Lakes down to Greenland. That remains closed. The bridge over the Sleepy River is closed, and it's just takes a ton of money to get these big bridges put in. So that trail's closed. And then Trail 12 out of Ontonagon west towards my location here outside of White Pine, that has a detour down Norwich Road to alleviate another bridge that's out. And then over in the Wakefield area, and I feel terrible for that area. They had one little landowner that I've worked with them for years. I can completely understand where he's coming from. And, 1,500 sleds a day through a tiny little spot right next to a highway was just too much when, the sleds could just go and use the lake. So we'll put a map up, but in the Wakefield area, you'll have one, you just will have to jump out on the lake to access the gas stations and stuff in town. But other than that, Wakefield area, the city, the GRTA, those guys have been killing it, doing everything they can to keep trail access open. And it's been a great season so far for it. So things are going well there. But like I said, it's just aging infrastructure that's really causing problems. And, nowadays with the lawyers and the engineers, just cost a lot of money to get stuff done to hold a 35,000 pound tractor and drag up over a river.
Yeah, I suppose. You'd mentioned the landowner, and so many times, when something goes not our way, people make a villain out of the landowner. But yet, if you haven't, as a snowmobiler, not you, the generic you, hasn't thanked a landowner recently. I mean, it is amazing how so much of our entire network across this country is going across other people's property, and you got it just takes a few yahoos to trespass over their winter wheat, or to where they get some trees planted or whatever, to screw the whole thing up. So
and in Michigan, it's just so weird because everybody just has this boondock mentality, which right outside of where I'm at is 1 million acres of public land open for off trail riding. But it's really easy to kind of jump to conclusions and kind of not gather the facts and read into things and understand it. But it's just unfortunate. But this is these people's little slice of heaven. You're on their private land. It is a gift and a privilege to be able to drive through somebody's fenced in back 40. They've worked all their lives to buy that and have that. And I mean, I know people up here, landowners on trail systems that they're not snowmobilers. I wouldn't even call them pro snowmobilers, but they're pro community, and they allow the traffic through because they know how much it means for all of their neighbors and people that do, cut a living up here. The trails provide just a faucet of revenue for our communities to draw from. So it is just incredible, the private land network of trail systems we have here in the Midwest.
So thanks again, everybody, for watching. You're watching Snowgoer Live. My guest is Steve Hamilton from up in the UP. You had mentioned you're sitting right next to a big chunk of land where people can go boondocking. How to the layman, to the average person, how do you know when you're in the UP where you can kind of go out and do some exploring and where you should stick directly to that trail? Is there any guidelines you have to share?
Yeah. Number one, make a plan. Know where you're going to be riding and then research it. There are so many tools out there. From Onyx to the Polaris Ride Command app, I think there's some other apps out there that have free landowner information available. And once you figure out where you're going to ride and the direction you're going to go, the next thing you have to ask yourself is what land is legal for off-trail riding.
Right.
And technically it's public land, which would be state or federal owned land or county forest. So right by us is the Ottawa National Forest. It's 990,000 acres. It stretches, a good portion of the western half of the UP. And if there is more than 6 inches of snow, you are legal to traverse without road or trail on a snow machine if there's more than 6 inches of snow. Now, there are areas that have other restrictions like the North Country Trail, the Sturgeon Gorge Wilderness Area. There's after March 1st, south of Highway M28 and east of Lake Gogebic, typically is closed for off trail riding for eagle nesting season. So there's just some things to know, but honestly, it's really easy. You just can't just see a cool spot and go and ride it. It's mountain riders when they go out there and there's this beautiful hillside nobody's ridden on, and the guys that know are like, yeah, you go on that, you're gonna come down in a blanket of snow.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same thing here. Is you really just have to know before you go. So state, federal land, and or county lands are kind of really your ticket. And then here in Michigan, we also have corporate timberland, forest cropland.
Right.
That is a gray area. And up in the Houghton, Twin Lakes area, a lot of the land up there is either the Baraga Copper Country State Forest or it's privately owned forest crop timberland. And it's kind of a gray area, but you just gotta know where you're at. There's so many tools out there. If anybody doesn't know how to use them, my goodness, give me a shout, and we'll be more than happy to school you in on how to do it and do it right, because I'm a backcountry rider. I love tree weaving and climbing hills and running untracked logging roads, and you just got to put the effort in and look for the right type of land to go and ride on.
You're right, and there's so many tools now, and everybody carries a phone when they're riding, so it should be pretty simple. You just gotta take that extra step, but it's worth it because it's so much fun. So when I was up there riding a few weeks ago, we're zooming down some trails, and we stopped at a certain place, and all of a sudden I look off my left, and there's this glowing big Polaris thing with these charging ports, and I'm like, where the heck did that come from? And then I thought, oh, I bet I know who has something to do with this. And that's something called North Coast Adventures. That's your business. First
yes,
of all,
sir.
Talk about your adventure business with sled rentals and guided trips and stuff like that, and then we'll get into the electric stuff.
Yeah. So we have 30 2024 Polaris Matrix 650 adventure snowmobiles for rent. 1 up, 2 up. All of our sleds include the best damage waiver. It's all in the pricing. We're kind of a no nonsense place. We don't hit you with fees and this and that. It's, I know how hard it is to get away on vacation. The last thing people should encounter is their vacation being difficult or hard on them. So we have 30 sled rentals that we do all winter long. Delivery will come see you. We have 1,000 acres of private land here with a couple of powder fields. So anybody looking to sharpen their powder turning skills, we can definitely help out there. And then we also have a campground in the summertime where we do some guided tours on the property here, and then I do a guided UTV waterfall tour out of Ironwood, Michigan area. That keeps me very busy in the summer. It's just a blast. And then we also have our EV rentals. And this year, we were a new business, and last winter, or the absence of last winter, wreaked a lot of havoc on our very young business. So we had to pause our normal gas fleet operation, and we would have paused kind of all of our off-road operations. But Polaris called us about 2 years ago and said, hey, we have this little idea. Are you interested? And when a company of that size has a cool little idea, I think anybody would say yes. So we said, yes, absolutely. And we ended up bringing to life kind of the world's first fully electrified off-road trail system. And like much of the electrified world, some of the things that happened, it was subsidized. So there was a large grant of $700,000 that went to Polaris to initiate this charging port program. But each, so we have 4 charging stations spread out across the trail system in our county here. And each charging station was a little over $300,000. So it was a significant investment from Polaris into the infrastructure here in the state of Michigan. And we logged almost 14,000 miles on EVs last summer. So it was really cool. The machines have an 80-mile range. It's not for the average hardcore guy. It's for somebody that does off-road every weekend, like you and me. This would, probably be a very good vehicle for us. But for a lot of the people that were in our area, it was one of the coolest, most rewarding things to do, to take these people that really had no business being off-road, have never really kind of looked at off-road as, something for me to do. And they came back and were like, this was the highlight of our trip. And it was the vehicle, but really it was that vehicle bridging the gap to get these people into our world and kind of going, oh, I see what you guys are doing. And so it was a really cool year. So yeah, we still have the EV program here. We got all the sled rentals. We got lodging on site as well. And, we do guided tours for powder, and we just try to stay busy and keeping smiles on people's faces.
I can't let it go. Well, first of all, don't worry, fellow sled-heads. Steve isn't trying to turn you into an electric snowmobile person.
Thank you.
He knows he's a hardcore rider. He's a two-stroke guy like the rest of us. But final question for you, because I got to get on to my second guest. Brett Richter is all queued up and ready to join us, talk oval racing. You're now officially a Youper after being there for a decade. So your cousin from I don't know, Iowa comes up and you're going to take him for a ride in your area. What are two things you're going to take him to? Snowmobile ride. What are two highlights in your area you definitely want that person to see?
Lake of the Clouds, Porcupine Mountains. If you've never been there and ridden through the park, it is an experience unto itself. It really is a big magical woods that you've got to go and ride through it someday. After that, it would be waterfalls. So I would take him to Trail 160 in North Ironwood, to the TP and the Superior Falls, or I'd take him to Trail 3 and take him to Bond Falls, or Trail 8 and take him to Agate Falls, or take him to Trail 13 right by us and take him to Big Victoria Dam Falls. So getting to the waterfalls in the winter, seeing the ice and seeing the Porcupine Mountains and Lake of the Clouds scenic overlook are definitely kind of the marquee things that people should plan to come and see.
Yep, absolutely. Bond Falls, well, both Bond Falls and Lake of the Clouds, two of my favorite places on Earth. I love them both.
Yeah,
it's spectacular in the winter and the summer for that matter too. But really,
for sure.
All right. Well, we're wishing you an extremely snowy winter. We appreciate your time. How do people? Give a plug to your website. How they get a hold of you at your North Country adventures?
Yeah, so you can go to Hamilton's North Coast. That's Hamilton's with an S, northcoast.com. Or you can go on Facebook and hit us up. Definitely it's a busy season, so give us a call versus shooting us a message. If you need something sooner than later, definitely give us a call. We're out in the trails and doing all sorts of stuff. So, John, thank you to everything you do for our sport and our industry. Well, you are a living treasure as well. So safe travels to you this winter, and safe racing to all the oval racers out there. I got a ton of friends out there making left turns again this winter. So safe racing to everybody. Thank you.
Perfect. We will magically make Steve disappear. There he goes. And I'll remind you that you're watching Snowgoer Live, our new weekly show that'll run through the winter. We're going to pick it up again in the fall. Once again, Snowgoer Live is brought to you by Arctiva, maker of a broad range of jackets, bibs, boots, gloves, base liners, pretty much everything the snowmobiler could need. Available at arctiva.com. And we're also sponsored by Z1R, a maker of helmets for snowmobilers and also helmets and other apparel for the motorcycle industry that can be found at z1r.com. And with that, we will bring in the famous, the infamous, whatever you want to call him, Mr. Brett Richter is joining us on the screen. How are you doing today, Brett?
Good evening, John. I don't know about that introduction, but other than that, I'm great.
So Brett is our oval racing insider this year. He's going to be traveling all over the snow belt and going to oval races, and he's already written some stories for snowgoer.com. He'll be joining us on here for a couple reasons. First of all, to update everybody on oval racing, but also just because I'm a oval racing guru, not a guru, a super fan myself. So I love hearing about it. But so round one of racing is in the books. You were there up in Beausejour, Manitoba. Tell us in general what you kind of saw up there.
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
Of entries for the December race in Beausejour, which was just phenomenal. A lot of those entries brought sleds for multiple classes. So 54 races, I think, on Saturday, 55 on Sunday. And they put that big light package in on the half mile up there. So we raced, into Saturday evening. Just a fantastic opening weekend. Lots of new things that happened, some challenges for some race teams that you didn't expect, but really just a ton of fun.
So Brett again wrote some stories about both the Saturday and the Sunday racing that you can find on snowgoer.com, and you can read all about the victories by folks like Blaine Stevenson and Gunnar Stern and Tommy Olson and Joey Birch in the main classes. There's also racing in a whole bunch of classes, these oval races. But in general terms, aside from who won the classes, kind of what struck you at Beausejour? What were some of the kind of themes you walked away from there with?
Yeah, I think there were really three things that I found quite interesting. First of all, the difference between what we consider to be the perennial contenders, the leaders of the classes, especially in those premier classes, the difference in speed and track awareness between them and what we consider to be the rest of the field has really shrunk over the off season. So the races are much tighter top to bottom across the board, which was really intriguing, not only in F3 and Champ, but even some of the other classes. In addition to that, there's this new 106 track that's out this year. The mechanical issues that developed from that 106 track were really caused some big issues. And probably the third thing that really, really impressed me, there was 5 women running Pro Champ class sleds up there. 5, which is really just impressive.
Yeah. This I watched a lot of the racing on the CPTC website. And by the way, great job with some of the interviews and some of the pit updates and stuff like that. I thought the coverage was terrific. Let's break down the primary classes a little bit further, if you will. So Formula 3 is now the World Championship class. So a lot of people pay attention to that with Eagle River just a few weeks away. We saw Tommy Olson win the big one on Saturday, but only by about this much because he had a guy from Michigan who was snapping at his tail. Who else looked fast, and what surprised you in that class?
Yeah, first of all, the entries, I was surprised that about half the field was crossed over between Champ and F3. So there's still a significant number of Champ drivers that are trying to run both classes. But yet the other half of that class is almost dedicated F3 drivers, most of them being enduro drivers that are putting an F3 chassis together with aspirations, of course, to try and win the WC. My theory right away was that an enduro driver, yes, can handle the sled, but probably doesn't understand the sprint mentality quite as well as a sprint driver was. I was totally off base. The enduro guys handled it really, really well. People like Reed Klinger that came up and just put an F3 out really just showed well. Joey Birch has a ton of laps in a lot of classes, but he F's that F3 really well, and he's right in there, and he's got the respect of the Champ drivers that are crossing over into the F3 class. So the racing's really competitive. It's tight. Just really neat stuff at that level.
Yeah, it was. Joey has been really good at Eagle River the last couple of years, so he caught right on. But even there's it attracts some cross country racers. It gets the Formula or the enduro crowd in, and it was just so impressive watching so many people who maybe last year were good. Now they're snapping at everybody's heels. They're right there, and even your veteran drivers. It seems like it took Gunnar Stern a little bit to adjust to that bigger chassis. He was really fast, especially on Sunday. I think he won the final on Sunday, didn't he? No, he won the Champs final on Sunday. But either way, he was right there.
Yeah, Joey Birch won the F3 final on Sunday.
Yeah.
So yeah, but you're exactly right. I've had a chance to talk to Gunnar a number of times about the F3, and he will admittedly say his favorite sled. He'd much rather run the Champ than the F3, but he also understands the validity of running F3. So he's really put some time and effort into it this year, and it's showing. The results are there. So he actually, I think, goes into Eagle River this year with probably a more substantial opportunity to really place and do well in that F3 class in the final compared to the previous couple of years. So very happy with the results and how that's turned out. On the Pro Champ side, some of the people that I didn't expect to have awesome results were really, really quite good. I mean, Will Garceau shows up with a 6th or a 7th in the Pro Star Cup Tour final. And he came in purely because of 2 drivers that withdrew from the final. So he got to the back row, but ends up 6th or 7th. He's got a lot of skill. He's got a lot of speed. Hunter Sears and the new PDF team, really did some great work. And then 2 new faces on the podium with Calvin Peterson and Gavin Peterson showing up. So it's not just the traditional Stevenson, Stern, Olson, Gady, podiums that we've seen for the past. It really seems to be changing.
And there were a couple of really fast French Canadians there too. I mean, between Lambert and Philippe Roy Lalonde, they both had nice appearances as well.
Yeah, Danik's actually already parked over here at the Ironwood track, so he shared information. He's gone from home now for 5 weeks just to go racing. So he's got a passion for it. You talk to him, and he lights up like a Christmas tree when you talk ice oval racing.
I know there's some people viewing, including I see Mr. Chuck Decker has joined us, who really still have a passion that they think that Pro Champ should be the World Championship class. There's other people who think Formula 3 is. For me, I love it that we now have 2 really big classes, 2 really high-profile classes. I mean, when I first started going to Eagle River in the 90s, there was a F1 champion and an F3 champion, and Mike Hoole's win was not quite as big as Dale Loritz's win at my first Eagle River in '94, but they were both true benchmark victories. I think if we can continue that, I think it's good for the entire sport.
Right. I would agree with that. I'm a champ guy. That's just kind of what really like the champ class. 24 entries, I think, up in Canada for a December race in the champ field, and I think we 16 in F3, which is still a great number. But I better keep my opinion to myself.
Well, people are here to hear our opinions. So you had mentioned Ironwood, that Mr. Lambert is already there. It's Ironwood weekends coming up. What's the track looking like? I believe you were there last weekend to see some of the vintage racing, but is everything coming together pretty good now that it's cooled off again?
It really is. The PVR group was in this past weekend. They had a Saturday, Sunday show. They had Friday practice. The temperatures Friday and Saturday were obviously questionable. Huge shout out to Greg Basom and the Ironwood crew for putting together a track when the temperatures were right. It held up on Saturday. The whole shots were Rooster Tail City. I mean, it was just looked like it was pushing slush left and right, but it froze up really well overnight on Saturday, and Sunday's racing was drastically different because the surface was different, but it was really fast. And then they've been working on it all week and put some water down. I've talked to a couple of people who are there today, and they're actually impressed at the track. So I think it's really set up for a really good weekend. I know you're just talking to Steve about the lake effect snow. Obviously, Ironwood's been susceptible to that for a number of years as well. So as much as we want snow in one respect, it'd be nice if we could just hold off or just maybe snow at night.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm just going to quickly roll through a couple of the photos that Brett submitted with his story. A photographer out of the Beausejour area was there taking pictures, and I think there you are in one of them, interviewing Mr. Stevenson. So you're going to be covering Ironwood for us this weekend. I'm guessing as the guy who's supposed to be neutral, you're not going to pick any victors for me. But aside from winners, anything else you're really looking forward to at Ironwood this weekend?
Yes, Matt Gady's got to turn his season around right now, and he had a track issue up in Canada, and they switched in between heats from the new track back to the old track. He came off of the second heat, and one of the studs apparently had gotten into the heat exchanger as well, and he dropped the fluid out of his heat exchanger. And then the old track is lighter than the new tracks, and they put him on the scale, and he got disqualified for being underweight. And they had enough mechanical problems that they actually passed Saturday night and headed home. So I know that he's expressed on other forums that his goal really was to try and win a Pro Star Cup Tour championship, and he finds himself in a huge hole right away. So if I'm watching for anybody this weekend, I expect him to come out on fire. If you know the Gady family, Team 3G and Dale Ritz and his team owner, they don't sit on that stuff lightly. So I'd imagine there's a fire burning over in Minnesota right now that's coming to Ironwood tomorrow.
That was probably the oddest thing about it. If you just look at the results from Ironwood, is Matt Gady's missing. And if you look at the heat results, he did extremely well in some of his heat races. So he definitely had speed with both sleds, but various little gremlins took him out. And yeah, he's behind the 8 ball. You're right. He's got
Yeah.
something to prove yet.
Yeah, and I don't have anything to base this on, but I just think I think his ultimate goal is to try and win the vintage WC and the modern day WC in the same year.
Yeah.
To be the only that has a shot right now at doing that. So, but he needs seat time on those things to make that happen. So I think Ironwood's going to be pretty important to him.
He's won both of those titles multiple times now, and if anybody can do it, boy, I wouldn't bet against him. That's a high performance family overall. I know that on the car racing side, I've got a cousin who's very close to Jacob Gady and his racing efforts with late models traveling across the country. So definitely a performance oriented family, and wishing them the best. Well, really wishing everybody the best in Ironwood. Good, safe weekend with good racing. That's all we can ask.
Yeah, a little bit of track configuration difference too. The turns 3 and 4 have been pushed in about 10 or 12 feet. So
Okay.
that, turn 4 used to be a little bit of a dog leg kind of a corner to it, and that's been kind of smoothed out a little bit. And I know that the racers were quite happy with how that worked out. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't think the notes from previous years at Ironwood will vary much because of the size of the track and everything else. But the configuration, I think, is going to lean to some little better racing coming out of 4 towards the checkered flag.
All right. Well, we will look for your stories Monday on I'll look for them in my inbox, and then we'll get them up on snowgoer.com. So if you want to keep track of the best oval racing coverage, the guy who is, what would be on my left? I don't know how this is set up for our viewers, but the guy on the other side of the screen is the guy that's going to have the best coverage all year. And we look forward to your coverage. We also look forward to seeing you in Eagle River when you and I are both there here in a few weeks for the World Championship weekend. Got a note on here from the folks over at the Manawa Snowdeo that we should give a plug to the Decker Triple Crown. So yeah, let's do that. The Decker family has in honoring Dick and Audrey Decker, has gotten some support and put some big money behind an important kind of feeder class to oval racing. Can you describe that for everybody, and I'll fill in anything you miss?
Yeah, absolutely. The first event was the PVR weekend here in Ironwood. They had 24 sleds entered in the F500 class, which is the class that was chosen by the Decker family for this inaugural Triple Crown. So there's going to be a race. There's going to be 4 feeder races going to the final in Manawa. So it'll be the Ironwood PVR race, the Ironwood USSA race. Then it'll jump down to Wausau for the Wausau USSA race, and then the Wausau PVR race. And then from those 4 qualifying rounds, they'll develop a field for the finals for the Manawa F500 class. So they had 24 sleds in Ironwood for the PVR weekend. Just the racing was incredible. The final ended up, they had a red flag on the white flag lap. So it was a 1 lap out at the end, and Derek Meyer was leading by a pretty good distance, and then spun on the whole shot and ended up coming in second on that one. Just missed out. So just shows right away that the competition in that field is really incredible. So yeah. I know Dave's going to be up here in Ironwood this weekend again promoting the Decker Triple Crown. I plan to sit and talk with him a little bit. I know he's going to do some commentary on the live stream from USSA as well.
Very good. Yeah, and there's I believe $17,000 in total purse in the points fund, and $10,000 to the winner if I remember right. So and it pays back pretty well too. So it's that's a healthy chunk of money for a class of sleds that is relatively easy to get involved in. And lets people of multiple age groups and everything all compete against one another. So it's pretty exciting stuff that this is a new level of support down at that level.
Yeah, it really is. I know that I think Dave made a comment about putting a briefcase of $10,000 $1 bills together and bringing it to Manawa and handcuffed it to himself until the final.
Well, it won't be the first time he's been in cuffs. Oh, I'm kidding. Come on. All right. Well, with that, we will let you go, Mr. Richter, and wrap up our show with some news and highlights. But as always, we really appreciate your help and your undying enthusiasm for oval racing.
Sounds great, John. Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you.
All right. We will dismiss Mr. Richter. So now we'll move to our Hot Topics segment. We had quite a bit of news that's been happening lately in our sport. Probably the biggest one, the one that's got everybody talking, is of course what's going on at Arctic Cat. So I'll kind of try to try to bring some people up to date, but also kind of share my take on it. So in November, the Textron Corporation that now owns Arctic Cat announced that they were going to do a halt in production. Then later in mid-December, they announced that they're going to close the factories or the production part of the factories for at least 6 months. Some of the discussions that they then had with dealers that I know confirmed what some of us had thought might happen or maybe feared, that they're not going to have a 2026 snowmobile lineup. But that does not mean that Arctic Cat is closed. All the rumors that are out there that Arctic Cat is closed are false. There's still staff there. I've traded emails with some of them in the last 12 hours. Some Arctic Cat staffers up there. So, they're still open. They've still got support. They've still got dealer support. They've got sales. They've got warranty. They've got people who are there. The unwritten thing in the Textron press release to me is that, to me, this is Textron saying this division is for sale. And I think that's a good thing. We had heard anecdotally from some very well-placed officials at some other big power sports companies that a few years back, people from those companies went to Textron and said, hey, we want to buy Arctic Cat, and they couldn't get a price. They couldn't get a return phone call. Now Textron is saying, yes, we're looking for strategic alternatives, something to do with this division. There's all sorts of rumors out there. The John Deere rumors went around this summer. There's Bobcat, Argo, CF Moto. The one that we heard just last week, 2 weeks ago now, floating around pretty heavy was Kawasaki, because they've talked about the fact that they're kind of maxed out at their Lincoln facility, but do want to manufacture more in the U.S. And that's really the thing that a lot of the naysayers have to remember. Arctic Cat has value. Now, their off-road product kind of pulled their company down more than their snowmobile division. I know as snowmobilers, we all look at their snowmobile world and blame stuff on that. Well, it's really their off-road product where they lost all their market share and really kind of turned their books upside down. But they've got this massive, like 585,000 square foot manufacturing facility in Thief River Falls. It's pretty dang nice. Their place where they build engines in St. Cloud, Minnesota is about 60,000 square feet. That's even more modern. Both of those have definite value. The Arctic Cat brand, particularly in snow, still has value. So if, theoretically, could a Kawasaki move in and start building their off-road products in Thief River Falls and then offset that with Arctic Cat snowmobiles? I think they could. It's just a matter of who steps up to the plate and what the prices they've got to pay. I think that this started a process that will end up somewhere good. Yeah, I'm an optimist, but I do believe that. Now, the difficult part, of course, is remembering the people that are affected by this. There's a lot of really dedicated, hardworking people who've, really dedicated much of their lives to Arctic Cat that have been let go in recent months, and or will be after this production halt while they're doing some final contract work. And that's heartbreaking. I mean, those people, always remember that people can say this, that about a company. There's always people behind a company. Our thoughts are for those people as they, venture out from this. Hopefully, again, a new buyer steps in and a lot of those people are rehired. But in the meantime, this news coming right in front of the holidays was certainly difficult. We're just hoping the very best for them. Other piece of news that just dropped in the last couple of days, some changes in the snowcross world. Travis Kern, who's been running the pro class in snowcross the last few years, has announced that he is retiring. He's been dealing with a wrist/hand injury for years now. And it's affected his performance, it's affected his pain level that he gets put through. And he's decided to resign and retire now. So we wish him the very best. We hope long-term that wrist gets patched up so it doesn't affect him the rest of his life. Consummate pro, showed up, ran good for K2 Motorsports. But Travis, thanks for your participation in the sport all these years. A really strong racer as he was coming up through the system. Now, the twist to that, so that was announced 2 days ago. The twist of that came yesterday when Daniel Benham was named as the guy who's going to fill the seat at K2 Racing. So many of you who follow snowcross probably have heard of Daniel Benham. He's won some pro finals. He's done really well. I raced for a number of teams. He was supposed to be racing this year for the Woody's racing team. But then when Articat cut their contingency program, Woody stepped away from the sport, and all of a sudden you had this really top level racer who did never ride this year. So waiting in the wings, suddenly a seat opens up at K2 Motorsports, and there he is. So look for Daniel Benham Jr. On that sled starting next weekend with a week and 2 days at Canterbury Park. And then the last thing that we want to cover in our hot topics thing was two very sad goodbyes. Over the holidays, we lost two pretty legendary people in our sport, although from completely different aspects of the sport. One of them was kind of a hero of mine by the name of Olav Ahn. Olav of Ahn Performance, he first made his name at OMC, tuning or designing really those, Johnson and Evinrude snowmobiles way back in the early 70s, when OMC decided that they no longer wanted to be a part of the snowmobile business, and Ahn was cast out into the wind. He started Ahn Performance back in 1976, and that has been a stalwart in our sport ever since. I had heard a few weeks ago that Olav was not doing well. And then he did pass away just recently. So our hearts go out to his family, to his fans. Olav will never be forgotten. He's was inducted into the Racing Oriented Snowmobile Hall of Fame way back in 1970 or 1997. And that's what now 27 years ago or whatever. And he's still been working, whether it's the top level racers in various aspects, where he became the go-to guy for a lot of vintage parts and vintage exhaust systems and stuff like that, because he kept all his molds and everything. This is a guy that had patents for various things over the years. Really an understated genius. When you talk to him, he was kind of slow walking and slow talking, and kind of had this wry sense of humor, and that really hid the kind of the performance mind he had. But it was a strong mind, and Olav, we're going to miss you. The other surprising death that when news came out of Alaska, that Dane Ferguson died on Christmas Day. Here's a guy who, you may remember him from the Sled-Nex videos or the Octane videos or whatever, an X Games gold medalist. After he retired from all that, he kind of ran a kids-oriented race circuit up in Alaska. And he also, interestingly, got really involved in humanitarian efforts to Ukraine after the Russian invasion. I don't know any of the details of his passing. Best I can find, some sort of accident on Christmas Day. But again, as a husband, father of a couple kids, really heartbreaking to hear of his passing. And again, we will never forget him. Good guy overall. So again, you are watching Snowgoer Live. Once more, we want to thank our sponsors, Z1R Helmets and Arctiva Snowmobile Gear. We're going to be doing this most Thursday nights through the winter. You'll find me in this very spot, unless I'm off test riding a snowmobile somewhere. I know, poor me. But we'll share what's going on in the sport. We'll talk about the weather. We'll talk about where we're riding, what we're riding, racing, snowfall, you name it. And we'll also take your questions in our chat, which we want to thank all of you who added the chat tonight. So look for us next Thursday. Thanks again, everybody. And we will do the official sign off here. As I said, I'm still learning this software. And here it comes. Bye, everybody.